But I don't think, Dr. Paul McCallum, that I did get it wrong. I think you were an Inland Revenue spy, and if you think that that is going to encourage me or anyone else to think well of the Inland Revenue, you can think again. You have come up against me several times on behalf of my clients. Every time you have been beaten, twice in court in the most humiliating circumstances. Just leave us alone. Get off our case. We will pay our taxes. We will do it sensibly, correctly, and without any attempt at avoidance or evasion. But we will not have this Christmas game. We will not have this spying. Enough is enough. The people are fed up with this. Now, this links in, you see, Alex, to the overall theme of this broadcast, which is that the governing class is out of control.
They've approached all the dentists that my dad talks to be Homeland Security spies on their patients. They're setting up a spy network here that makes East Germany look like a wonderland of freedom.
Yeah, that's right. And this has got to stop. And so I'm very, very, very tired of all this, because they're always coming after the likes of me, mainly because I dare to speak out. And I say the EU is a dictatorship. I say that the euro is a Mickey Mouse currency. Well, hey, we can all see that now. But I was saying it years ago. I was saying it in 1996 before they'd started it, that this was going to happen. I gave a detailed lecture.
I know, it's on your website. Stay there. We've got to get to the euro. Yeah. What's happening with the euro? What do you see coming? What is it? Yeah. And then we've got to segue into the latest environmental fraud, the green police, $2,000 a day fines for hay dust in the U.S. I mean, just 20% taxes in California, the mass exodus. And I love Californians, but then they come to Texas fleeing that and try to reinvent it here. I mean, it's crazy. We'll be right back with Lord Christopher Monk. For a long time. You know, that's a point that I make a lot on the air, but it's so important. This is all transparent. The EU, the UN, they all interlock. Globally, our State Department, all of it. The Communist Chinese, they get authoritarian systems. That's why they all team up together to shut down industry, to raise taxes, because the elites are all basically exempt. They can commit whatever crime they want. The head of Facebook can, publicly, scam with his stock while he's selling it out the back door. He probably won't get in trouble because they're the insiders and they're waging war against us. And if you look at the transformation of Europe into what looks like the old Soviet Union, the banning of crucifix, all of this, the going after property, the banning of space heaters, it's all little knickknacks at first where they set the precedent, they're in charge.
And the treatment with contempt of the citizen by the bureaucracy, like these revenue spies, these secret police, these people who think they can behave just how they like without anyone...
Oh, the TSA here a lot of times will treat you like absolute scum on purpose. So break down in this brief segment, long segment coming up, the tyranny of the EU and how 80% of your laws are made by them.
Right. This is an official German government estimate made 2 or 3 years ago that 83%, 5/6 of all laws made for us in the United Kingdom and indeed throughout the European dictatorship are now made by the 30 commissars, that's the official German name for them, the commissioners who run the European Union. Do you know the European Parliament doesn't even have the right to bring forward a bill? Only the commissars can do that. The European Parliament can vote on that bill, but its vote doesn't matter. It can be overruled by the Commission, which also has the right to circumvent the Parliament altogether and make a thing called a Commission regulation directly. Now, the EU's advisors were at the Cancun climate conference a couple of years ago. I met some of them there. They were advising the UN on how it too could grab power from democratic nations like the United States in the same way that the EU, by stealth, over a period of 20 or 30 years, had grabbed enormous amounts of power, very nearly all power now, of making laws and imposing taxes from the individual states of the European Union. And clearly the UN now says, we want some of this. We want the chance to be a world government and have the powers of taxation over the whole globe. Can you imagine, given how powerful even the EU is just with little old Europe? Imagine.
Trent Lott is now supporting that law of the sea where the UN will be 10 miles out everywhere taxing you to go fishing or go out in the ocean.
That's it.
The hellish UN will now be off the coast of the U.S.
That's it. And the trouble with every time you sign a treaty like the Law of the Sea Treaty, you're transferring power from elected hands in your country to unelected hands somewhere else.
My God, if we can't get Homeland Security off our back, imagine the UN. And what about the UN? It's even in the New York Times, but they say, oh, but it's kind of good. Killing people in Africa and Latin America for the land to make it carbon sink zones.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. They're so over-the-top murderous, but because they wear blue helmets and Miss America says they love kids, we're supposed to roll over to them.
That's right. And the thing to do is to do what I do. I've told you a couple of stories now about how the ordinary citizen, when they try to come after him, can fight back. You know, the secret police were amazed when they got a call from the magistrate's court saying you're summoned to appear to answer a very serious charge of conspiracy to commit, a crime of willful misfeasance in a public office. They were astonished. They weren't used to having it done to them. And you can bet that the Inland Revenue isn't used to having the names, identities, and front shell companies of its spies exposed all over international television. This is how one can fight back against these people, because
there's also good people in government sending us stuff now.
Absolutely. This is more and more going to happen, because it's now got to the point where the governing class worldwide has studied the EU, has seen how powerful the EU has become in its territory. And it says, you know, if we could do this globally, we could really have world domination. And
they say that, and then nowhere to run.
And that's it.
Just like Californians are running to Texas, there'd be nowhere to run. Oh, no.
That's the point. What are we going to do? Go to the moon or Mars? No, it's not going to be so easy. And so this is what they're trying to do. And we have to stop them. And you're doing a wonderful work here, Alex, in trying to stop them. And you know, sometimes people say, oh, Alex Jones, he's a bit extreme. Well, I can tell you this, nothing like as extreme as what they're trying to do to us. And so you're quite right.
That's the point. They're so authoritarian, and it's naked, and I'm just desperate to warn people.
That's the thing. People need to be... I mean, here am I, a peer of the realm, for heaven's sake, and they think they can play these silly games on me.
They SWAT team members of the parliament that investigate them.
That's the thing. And they, you know, they...
I mean, let me tell you, if I was a member of parliament investigating them, they SWAT teamed me, I'd be in their face. Listen, you little crook, you're in trouble. Instead of everyone like a dog, rolling over.
Yeah, and actually, I think we're going to have to bring our secret police to an end. I will be writing to our finance minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who's in charge of the Inland Revenue. He's answerable to Parliament for it. And say, look, this is one time too many.
Stay there. We got to come back.
We're on the march. The Empire's on the run.
All right, we're going to take your calls in the next little segment. The segment after that, we'll at least get to John, CJ, Christopher, Tony, and Brian.
You'll take my life, but I'll take yours too.
This is tyranny. The green police, all of it, it's unfolding. You can't go to a national park. They've announced, because humans are bad, scores of national parks are going to let humans in most areas. No more cars. You're not allowed to swim or go in the dunes. I went to the Texas National Seashore, where I've been going since I was born. Suddenly they were being rude, bossing us, telling us not to hurt the earth as we just sat there. I mean, it's this henpecking. It's about getting you accustomed to government interfaces. When I've been in England, they just come over and randomly, we'd like to talk to you. You're walking down the street. It's part of this little interview. And I talked to Paul Watson and Steve Watson that write for Infowars.com. Well, they're the editors of Prisonplanet.com, and they said, oh, yeah, that's routine, especially if you have a good-looking girl on your arm. You know, they're both handsome guys. Paul's married now, but Steve will be taking his girlfriend, his blonde girlfriend, out to dinner, and these sub-police they have run over and will always jab and demand to see his papers, and he's very clean-cut and nice. And again, same thing here, good-looking woman, TSA attacks. It's like literally living in a dictatorship. Lord Moncton, finishing up on that, and then give us a brief overview on the latest attacks, what the greenie meanies are up to.
The next stage, of course, is the Rio +20 conference in Rio de Janeiro, 20 years after the Earth Summit of 1992, which started so much of this rubbish going on. And the new theme, they tried... global warming, then it stopped warming, so they called it climate change, and it stopped changing, so they called it climate disruption, then it wasn't disrupting enough, then they tried calling it energy security, now the latest phrase is sustainable development. And what you notice with each of these phrases is that they're all attacks on the West by the rest of the world, or by particularly the communist factions even within the West, who do not want capitalism and prosperity and freedom and democracy to succeed. And the main thrust of the draft conclusions of this conference, which is it's already in draft, I've already seen it, is that Western countries must be made to pay the cost of the environmental disruption they are supposed to have caused.
Well, you said that in Durban a few months, 6 months ago or so, but then everything you said in the document that you got leaked, they started announcing it.
Well, what happened then was that I got the document, and what I did there was when I got the final version of the document, I actually had to parachute in to the conference because they tried to ban me from it. The UN tried to...
Oh, yeah, that's no joke. You actually... they've beat you up. They've arrested you at other conferences. Yeah. I forgot, you actually did parachute in.
From a height of 10,000 feet.
You're not joking,
and
guys, search that, Moncton parachutes into UN.
Pictures of that. Me grinning like a, from ear to ear as I jump out of this plane at 10,000 feet. Never done it before, or since.
They're not going to stop you, are they?
No. And so I got in, because the publicity was huge, of course, and they couldn't then get away with keeping me out. I also said that I would take them to court if any more nonsense, and so they backed off and said, okay, we accept.
You are something else.
And so I got in, and I got a copy of the final negotiating text, which was available to, you didn't have to be clever. It was available if you asked for it. Now, of course, the world's press was there. Not one of them reported this document even existed, let alone what was in it. So I put in a blog posting at What's Up With That, which is the great climate blog for those who are doubtful about whether this scare is really as strong as the usual suspects believe. And I put up a posting that just said, this Durban conference is proposing to set up an international criminal climate court, which only people from Western countries could be taken before. It was going to give rights of legal personality to Mother Earth. I mean, it's bonkers.
And they've since announced they are doing that.
No, well, what they've done, actually, is they dropped all these proposals within 24 hours of this blog posting going up, because they were so embarrassed.
No, I mean, I remember that they dropped it and said, oh, that's preposterous, and tried to even imply it wasn't true, but now they're back. I saw it in the news saying, we do need to arrest the climate criminals. In fact, they want to arrest people that deny paying Al Gore money will save us.
That's right. They do indeed. And there's been this continuous sort of moan from the very extreme Marxist left about how the likes of me ought to be taken to court.
Well, more and more they're saying, let's be authoritarian. What do they make of the guy...
At Penn State University, this is breaking news again, they've just had a conference on how to silence the climate deniers.
Oh.
And Michael Mann, of course, the fabricator of the hockey stick bogus graph, abolishing the medieval warm period, suggesting that today was warmer than it was in 1500. All of this sort of thing. He was there, and I was named as being one of the serious deniers. And the person organising this said that he thought that a conversation should be held about declaring climate denial to be a crime against humanity. Now, crimes against humanity are punishable by death. And it was...
So forget just a re-education camp. They want to kill us.
And it was James Hansen of NASA who first suggested that, as far as I can discover, that it should be treated, that anyone who questions this climate story should be regarded as somebody who ought to be executed for a crime against humanity. Now, of course, this is how far this is how desperate.
But because they have the cover-up of the long hair and the sandals and tie-dye shirts, we think they're non-threatening.
So if you're thinking of giving money to Penn State University or sending your kid there to be educated, don't.
Well, don't you want to get educated by Jerry Sandusky?
These people are totalitarians. They ought not to be given any encouragement or money of any kind. Penn State University believes in executing the likes of me for alleged crimes against humanity. Don't give them any oxygen, don't give them your children, and don't give them your money.
And not to mention what they do to kids in showers.
Well, we won't go into that. It's not for me to comment, obviously. But on this Penn State University attempt to say that the likes of me should be executed for treason against the planet, crime against humanity, the way they put it, it's all quite subtle. They don't say Moncton's going to have to be executed. They mention my name as part of this thing. And
no, but actually I have seen them say we need green fascism. Now, now, what do they make of the guy that came up with the Gaia theory? Their king over there,
Ludlow,
coming out and saying and reversing himself.
Well, they are, of course, furious with him, and now they